Hi, my name's Kirill and I did my research on the study experience. So to give a quick introduction, I chose to research the study experience in cafes and how and why this is an effective environment for students. My focus and target audience is students because I think they're the primary users of this type of environment. And the purpose and goal is to answer the overarching question of what are the benefits and drawbacks of this type of study environment from the archetype of the library, because libraries are very quiet and typically free of distractions, but still students tend to come to cafes quite often. And then I want to use that information to help students have a better overall study experience. So my research was conducted in three phases. Phase one, I conducted pure observation where I sat down and watched people's behavior and took notes to see how and what they did while they studied. In phase two, I conducted semi-structured interviews where I would ask them questions and follow up on anything I wanted to know more about or anything that stood out, anything that was surprising. And in phase three, I conducted a survey to collect data from people studying in cafes and also libraries. After each phase, I would collect the data and then analyze it based on the data analysis I thought would be appropriate for that data. Then using the results, I think this research can help two types of people. I think the first type of person is the student, because I think these results can help inform them what environment is best suited for them to work in, and it can also help them maximize their study time. And then the second type of person is the designer, because I think these results can help inform the designs of new study locations to be most beneficial for largest amount of students. So moving on, here's my first key finding. People are not studying for as long as they want to study. And I think this is important to the user because it helps them realize that they could be getting more value out of their study time and studying for longer. So during my interviews, one of my interviewees said that eventually I get hungry and look for food. So what that tells me is that they're cutting their study time short because they're getting hungry. That could be because they're not preparing by bringing their own food, or they just underestimate when they'll get hungry. And then also during my survey, I found that people realize that they almost rarely stay for the intended time that they want to stay. And I think that has to do with the study location as well as personal reasons, most likely. I think this is a key finding because it basically validates the need for the improvement of the current study environments. So I think one possible solution to this, a very simple solution, is to add a sign at the entrance of a study environment that basically tells the student, as an example, here's one I came up with: plan ahead, eat before you study, or bring a snack. And then it also shows them that there's a cafe around the corner that they can get food before they go into the library, or maybe it's a department lounge area or something like that. So that'll help with the hunger issue, so people won't leave earlier than they want. And also, I think as a side point, I think that libraries should allow food and drinks because I think it's important for people to for people to not be hungry while they're studying. And I think it's more important that people study the maximum amount. I think it's more people that people learn rather than um, putting more priority on the cleanliness of the library. So I think the next key finding are the provided resources that study locations offer. What is the importance to the user? I think the importance is that students often judge the ability to study when they choose a study location based on the resources that are provided. So taking a look at someone I interviewed, they said, I just want a place to sit that isn't crowded where I can plug in my computer. So it clearly states that they have basic requirements that they need to be successful. And also this graph also shows my survey that space, internet, and outlets are the top 3 most needed resources for students to be successful. I think this is a key finding because it's critically important that these resources are available for these students for them to do work in this modern day. So I think one possible solution is, since we saw that outlets were obviously a problem, or maybe not a problem, but something that is needed, I found that some places it's not very accessible to everywhere that you can sit, that you can have an outlet. So I think that something like this, where you can wind up the outlet and pull it out of the wall so that you can get access to it from the middle of the room, can be really helpful, and it's cheap and easy to implement. So my third key finding is the environmental pressure. And what I mean by that is I think it's important that users are aware of what's around them and how it affects their study behavior. So I think the importance to the user is that they're aware of their own pressure tolerance and they choose the appropriate study location. For instance, someone gave me a very good answer that clearly describes this. I asked them, what would you prefer, a coffee shop or a library? And he said, coffee shop. Since libraries feel a bit stuffy sometimes, the aura of the place is too studious. I need to take a break and it feels too fast paced. I don't like the feeling of trying to keep up with other people. So it is a key, I think this is a key finding because there's a lack of options for people that are in between where coffee shops are too relaxed and libraries are just a little bit too studious for them and they get burnt out. So I think a simple solution to this is to separate in a coffee shop, for example. I think it'd be a good idea to separate the room into one section where it's just people that are studying and then a different section for people to have conversations and socialize. I think what this does is it keeps the part where people are studying, it keeps it a studious environment, but it also keeps it a little more relaxed than an actual library because there's still background conversations and socializing going on to basically relieve some pressure. So I think in future research, if I were to continue, I would most likely dig deeper into why people are not staying. I think there's more reasons than people are just getting hungry. And obviously, in the data that I showed, there's a lot of people put other as their reason for leaving. Some of them said that it was because friends distracted them and told them to come out or do something else. But I think there's a lot there to learn from. And I think also a next step would be to expand the research and look at different types of study locations that are out there, because I think there's a lot more information we can see from places like student lounges or just different libraries or different coffee shops. Each have their own special environment that could help contribute to make a better environment for everyone. So in conclusion, I found that it was really interesting to see that after each phase of my research, I felt my direction changing from what I thought I would be focusing on, and I think this is a good thing. I think that the data and research should be the guiding factor about what I'm looking into, and not in kind of getting rid of, not getting rid, but um, not letting my bias affect my decision making. I think from my results, I found that there is a lot of new perspectives that I hadn't considered before, such as the pressure. I think that was a really big eye-opener for me personally. I think that was really interesting, and I'm glad that it came up. And it was probably the most interesting part of my study. I also like the idea that my research can be helpful for future people and making study environments better, and I hope that my research can shed some light on the need for an improvement in our current study environments. Thank you.